It's another good show that we got started up here with. Robert Smat is with me today, and I was like, we were talking earlier before we got started with the podcast. So you went and gave blood and the whole COVID thing. What's going on with that? How are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Because you've been traveling
Well,
around a lot before that.
I have been traveling as necessary. I started my week in Milwaukee and found myself on the West Coast by the end of it. And so it's you see, I'm my Zoom is showing me in the Seinfeld apartment, so I'm not actually in New York, even though it looks like I'm in New York 20 years ago. No, I am in the present day on the West Coast, and yeah, I drove all the way across, and we, we had to move. It was part of the plan, and went ahead and just did it. We thought we were going to fly, but ended up finding out that driving was going to be the safer option for everybody. And so yeah, I really have seen most of the heartland here, and one of the stops that we drove through was Gallup, New Mexico, which now it is one of the only cities that's been totally shut down. Sort of like New Rochelle was in New York back in the beginning. So we left there right when they shut that down, not knowing that if we had known it was such an issue, we would have gone around it. And yeah, saw a lot of the country. Did not see a lot of traffic. So those two things together made for a nice trip. Masks on all across.
Really? So what did you encounter like going? I mean, other than so it was all. How many days? It took you like 2 or 3 days? You have to stop for a hotel or anything?
Yeah, we did like 3 days, and 3.5 days actually. We tried to keep it at a pretty safe, relaxing pace, and there were a lot of to-dos that we had as we. Funnily enough, we had a lot of things that we had to accomplish as we moved from state to state. There were things in each state, whether it was, had to complete a fingerprinting test, and they weren't doing those in Milwaukee, so had to find a state that would do those as we made our way across, and went into every single grocery store in different states looking for Germex and hand sanitizer, and and a couple of states had been, restocked, or people there just didn't care as much, and they had a lot more. So we were picking up like toilet paper and hand sanitizer as we made our way across, and made the most of the trip for sure.
Yeah,
Went to
you
two or
get
three
to those
states I'd
hotel
never been
rooms
to
and you're like
before.
grabbing extra rolls and stuff.
As much as they would let us, as much, without running out their entire town basically. And then, yeah, you're right. I went and did the antibody test yesterday. I don't think they would, because if we had picked it up this week, it doesn't detect. And we're taking our temperatures and everything, making sure that we didn't pick it up this week. I was in San Francisco 2 months ago working on my movie that we'll be, talking about today. But part of the end of principal production on that documentary took place in Los Angeles and San Francisco during the last week of February. And so it was whenever the infections were kind of at their peak, or heading for their peak, right before they shut everything down, before they knew that there was a problem. And so I gave a speech at an American Heart Association event in February as well, that was in Louisiana right after Mardi Gras. So I almost saw more COVID, not realizing that I was in the epicenters, than I did this week as we drove across the country and kept to ourselves.
Now, did you
But
do
yeah,
any flying at all?
no, I did flying for those February trips. Yeah.
Wow. So when were you driving? When did you finally get back? What time? What day was it? Like dates?
It was a few days ago. So I'm rested again. I still have the dark circles, but I think that's permanent.
It's crazy. So, I mean, I've gone to the gas stations and stuff and seen some extreme screens. They put up the screens and the mask and stuff, but I didn't know
Yep.
what you encountered out there. So, fingerprint. What was the
Well,
fingerprint thing?
the most intense one was Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation had the most restrictive protections by far. It was masks, it was gloves, it was they had it together. The rest of Arizona, maybe not so much, but doing their best. And yeah, I got the antibody test to see if I had it, and I'll find out tomorrow. So sorry, I wish I had. I'll try to log into LabCorp and see if they'll give it to me now. But that was kind of a strange. They didn't really know how to administer it, but they did it anyway, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But had to go to LabCorp anyway for some other tests, and I was like, well, I'll check the box. Let's throw it in. Let's get it all looked at, because I want to
So
know. I want to know if I cross paths with it.
yeah, I've heard it called the nose tick or the brain tickler. Is that what you got? Did you get
No,
one
no,
of
no,
those?
no. That's if you're coughing, feverish. That's if you think you have it right now.
Okay,
And
okay.
the antibody test will not tell you if you currently have it. The antibody test can only tell you if you've had it in the past, because it's looking for the cells that hunt it down, that attack it.
I see.
So yeah.
Golly. So now that's the other thing. I've been researching as much as I can, just because as you know, with all the crazy flat earthers that are out there, they're like getting information from the box or getting information from the internet. You go, okay, so is there anyone that I know? Is there any family members I know or anybody related to me that actually have it? Did you find that out? Have you found anyone that close to you, family or extended, that have it?
My family all got pretty sick back in January, and so I didn't think so. But the more that they find out about, um, uh, the more they find out about how long it's actually been in the United States, the more likely it is where it's like, hey, you know what, they might have had it. I don't know,
They might have
but
had it
no,
and passed it.
they might have had it or not, or just stayed home and killed it. But I don't know of anyone in my family who's been tested positive for it. No,
Yeah, I wonder too if it's a
trying to
culture
keep
thing
it that
too,
way.
because like saying I had it and now I'm done with it, or I'm still recovering. There's a couple of news people that have done that. But I was trying to, I didn't know if people are embarrassed about it, but I was like, man, is there anyone near me or close to me that would have that, or had it or test positive for it?
I don't think they're reporting on it as much, but I think it's definitely in the United States at least turned into like a demographic disease. And so if you're in certain ethnicity demographic communities, you're going to be a lot more likely to have friends and family members that have it versus me, where everybody I know is uh, they're all scientists, but they're not. They're all people that are spending all their time washing their hands. They can work from home and they're not front line. So I don't know anybody
Same
that
here.
no, I don't know anybody
Yeah,
that
same here. My
has
hermits is what I got on my end. They stay at home. They don't like to go out,
it.
and and they're like it's so like you call them up and they're like, I got gasoline and I can make this. I was like, wait a minute, you've been preparing this? You got a closet
Yeah.
going on here? So my family's already like bracing for that, which is very interesting. But I think it was a friend of ours, aunt that was in California, did test positive for it. But I thought like, wow, that's the only one that I have, and the numbers are staggering. But you start mulling it over, and you're just like, okay, if it's spreading so quickly, it's bound to hit someone.
Yeah, or it's already hit everybody, and I think that's the interesting thing about these antibody tests is it's like if mine comes back positive, I won't be surprised because I was in the places where everybody had it, but I would be surprised because you, there are so many people that have had it pass through them and not even realize, and that's why they want everybody wearing the mask and washing their hands, is because if I got it today, there's probably a 50-50 chance I would never know that I was spreading it, and so that's kind of
Like
the
you were just a
idea.
carrier, right?
Exactly. So
Wow.
I want to find out if I was a carrier at any point, not because I would have spread it to anybody because I stayed home like everybody else, but if I'm immune to it, then yeah, I will be fearless in my staying at home.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, so how has it affected your filmmaking? Have you been doing a lot of editing?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of editing, and it's interesting because as so I just finished production on a documentary, and it's about a friend of mine at USC. It'll be my second feature film after The Last Whistle, which came out last year. That one was a narrative. This one's documentary, so kind of jumping media,
Mm.
but planning on going back to narrative after the doc. It's just had a friend did pretty incredible stuff. Saw him on the news a couple times, and I was like, you know what? And then eventually, enough happened to where it was like, okay, you know what? There's a third act to this story. I think this is something that people would be interested in, and started production on it a few months ago and finished right before COVID shut everything down. So have just been editing for 6 or 7 weeks now, and just working with post-production people in my circles and getting it put all together.
Now, how did you do the documentary? Did you write it out first, or did you write? I guess you wrote out a little bit out of a story arc first, then you kind of patched it here and there after getting the resources.
Yeah, and I started the documentary because I thought that I was going to be able to pitch it to a couple of production companies that I'm working with who are involved with, free speech documentary and workplace rights, that sort of thing. And so I really saw it as not really a business opportunity, but as something where if I had just a little bit of a grant or a contribution from from a small production company, that I could put the whole thing together, have the whole thing put together, and everybody I talked to loved it, and then they had all cooled on it by the time I started to shoot it and by the time I started to write it. But at the same time, even not having the funding come in, I was like, you know what, this is a cool story. I want to keep chasing it, and I want to do it in a way that's not gonna over leverage the whole thing. So shot as much as I could out of my own pocket, and we're still working on trying to find a grant, still trying to find a little bit of money to put us over the finish line.
Wow. Okay, so let's go through that phase. So what was it?
Yeah.
Is it what you were showing me earlier, the Walmart one?
Yeah, so right now I'm calling it the Walmart documentary. The working title is What Right question mark, and it's kind of all about the intersection of activism and your work and your salary and workers' rights and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's the trailer. Will I be able to hear it? Oh, there you go. Okay, you're gonna mute it.
No, the people can go and look at it, and
Yeah,
that's something that's weird
people can
about
look at
Zoom.
it.
So tell us a little bit about the doc. How does that work?
So my friend worked at Walmart's corporate office right after the El Paso shooting in Texas last August.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as it happened, Walmart kind of came out and said, "We're not going to change gun policy. We're not going to take action." And his whole thing, he really cares very deeply about that sort of thing. But also, he was seeing that around the workplace, around people that worked for uh, different Walmarts across the country, they didn't really feel safe coming to work. They didn't feel safe, participating as employees. And so he started to cooperate and to work together with his coworkers to try to influence upper management to make a change. Not all, a combination of both firearms change and just messaging overall, because the initial response from corporate was pretty callous, and so they really put their best foot forward, and in the end it turned into a lot of retaliation, a lot of intimidation, and but legally, as an employee, he had rights. And I think that was the story that I really wanted to chase with this movie was, okay, let's say you're in a similar situation. Let's say coronavirus is striking where you work, or just making you unsafe. What do you do?
Yeah.
And it's turned into a very important, because everybody at Amazon now is losing their jobs for the same reasons.
Yeah, and the attorney, or was there a attorney that was what was it, representing this guy?
No, well, yes and no. So a lot of what my friend Thomas did, he didn't know that you could go to attorneys and have a free consultation and let them guide you. He didn't. It's just you see one call, that's all. You think of the attorneys as the greedier side of things. So not really being aware that there was a litigation world out there, he was going it alone, and he was kind of flying blind. And so we did interview the attorney for the film, and he's based out of San Francisco, and he's a real nice guy, and he kind of analyzes what Thomas did at each stage of his activism and trying to give the company a change of pace. And so he kind of referees the whole thing as the movie goes on, and
Okay.
and it's possible that the two of them will end up working together, because there were some things that the two of them talking to each other, they kind of realized, like, oh, you know what, maybe he could still face retaliation. Maybe he suffered damages for this. So that's neither here nor there, and that's probably not covered in the film. But that's that, yes and no to all of it.
Okay. So how long is the doc?
Feature length, hour and a half. Maybe an hour 20 if I cut it down a little bit. But feature
Right.
length. Trying to make it use a lot of the Walmart iconography that fits into fair use. Really trying to look at the company from a bird's eye view, talk about the CEO and his role and everything, and yeah, just chase down the entire sequence of events and kind of apply it to, the coronavirus activism as well.
Now, are you doing this one-man band style, so you're conquering all the facets?
That's how it started, but that's not how it's going to end. I really do. I really am at the point where we need the fair title clearance. We need errors and omissions. We need an MPAA rating, things like that. And that's where the fundraising piece is really coming in. Have had a couple of producers jump on and join the one man band. But in terms of shooting it, we really did go around, and I shot a little bit in January and shot a little bit in December. And that was kind of the great thing about, producing a documentary versus a narrative film. With the narrative film, we had to do the whole thing in 2 weeks, and it was all right then and there for the most part. And so coming in with the documentary, it's been awesome because it's very piecemeal. And even though we had a finish line, even though there was a last, an end to the shoot time, I really enjoyed being able to sort of write and then shoot and then rewrite and then shoot. And then, so that's been a really fun thing to do. At the same time, I mean, we got Tiger King, we've got McMillions, McMillions on HBO Hulu.
What's McMillions? What's that?
McMillions. It's this documentary. I'm really aiming for that same audience in the sense that it's a series that just debuted on HBO, but during the pandemic, Hulu's picked it up. And it's about the McDonald's monopoly contest and how the fraud that existed inside the contest. And so it's like a 7-part series, 8-part series.
Wow.
It's fairly long. Yeah.
That's incredible.
A similar feel.
So this documentary, like, tell me a little bit about how, like, so you're in the middle phase. You're in the, like, you're still capturing, or you're still consolidating.
No, we're done with production. I mean, there's new news every day that factors into the movie. There's new things that I'm having to bring in every day, whether it's an Amazon VP, quitting their job, whether it's another development from Walmart and what they're choosing to do. But in terms of production's done, and we have the assembly put together. We're getting close to picture lock. Basically, picture lock is the next goalpost, and then at that point, we'll split it up. We'll go sound design. We'll go film festivals. We'll go composition and color. And then hoping to have the whole thing wrapped up by the middle of summer. Get it out during the fall.
Man, that's great. Yeah, because I've got this thing that's it's like. I consider it the ambulance chasers of the documentary world. You hear about the lawyers that are ambulance chasers.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. I guess it's the same thing with these documentary people. There's a lot of production companies that literally there's a guy that's sitting there getting a list down of like, all right, who's a celebrity that's about to die? Let's do a doc on them. Let's coronavirus is going to break out eventually. We're going to see the repercussions. So let's do a story on that. And
well, the crazy thing, I mean, there's a lot about what you're asking in the beginning, where it was like, what did you see? And while we were filming in San Francisco for the last day of production, we watched, and I even took a clip of it, and it shows up, and it's a perfect segue for the movie. But we watched the Carnival cruise come into Oakland Port with the quarantined passengers as it came into port. And that was sort of the beginning of coronavirus in California, was the docking of that ship. Not necessarily the first infections, but this idea that, okay, it's here now and we have to shut down. And we watched it as the stock market flipped a circuit breaker, we watched the world sort of go from alive to dead over the course of that Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Now, here's something I was wanting to ask you about, because I've been dealing with a lot of older business owners that, and you're the youngest one I've been encountered here recently, just in the last couple of months. But I had come up with this idea because I was like, hey, there's Zoom is being done, and there's these large rooms, and I even with local businesses, they got to go to the Chamber of Commerce. So I came up with this idea that and I asked them, I go, what's going on? And they're like, well, this is just a temporary fix to a temporary problem. And I go, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about Zoom and how you guys are using it and stuff, because it's like their main thing. That's the only way they're holding meetings. And of course, you got the Comic-Con conventions and different events, and there has been a lot of a major NAB and a whole bunch of different events. So I was like, okay, I wonder now that this, you're in a Zoom kind of world where you're just going to have you face on camera, and then there's just going to be a grid of people talking, and then a chat bot next to it. I go, what happens if it was more of a game like? Because I don't know about you, but I've been playing a lot of Roblox and Minecraft, and I was
Yeah.
like, if there was if there was a segment or something that said, hey, let me just go watch this in the VR style way where I can see a room full of the people that I'm talking to and so forth, I wonder if that would bring a new edge or something like that. Because when talking to the Chamber of Commerce's, most of them were like, well, we've actually gotten more members just with the Zoom because it's easy and accessible and people just pop on. And I'm like, well, when this thing
Right.
blows over, are you going to continue with the Zoom? And they're like, well, we don't have any plans. I'm like, they're gonna, people, I was talking to another person that they couldn't get a webcam. Like the webcams were being
Yeah.
bought out like left and right. But I don't know,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on the future? I mean, I know
Well,
we
I
got,
mean, there's a lot of thoughts on the future, whether it's got to do with the film industry or anything else. I think that the pandemic is going to increase the idea that there are these massive tentpole movies and these very small independent films and really nothing in between. I think that's going to increase, and that's sort of what what I'm excited to chat about later on is this really revolutionary idea of not spending too much when you go make a movie. And I think that's the tenet to everything I do. The movie that we did last year that's on Netflix now, we did for very low, hundred thousands. For this documentary. So far, we've put a few $1,000s into it. It's going to take a few thousand more to finish the thing, and then it's done. It's this whole movie kind of in this one package. And for to have that, you have to have a lot. You have to have that one man band mentality and that sort of thing. But that's not spending too much and being able to recoup is really my idea. Where it's it's like what movie do you want to make? Great, we can do it for next to nothing. It'll look great and it'll make its money back. Or it'll be a huge hit, or it'll go 10 times, 100 times. But, you're only going to get that 1 in 10 times. So, just this whole idea of being really smart with money when it comes to the film industry and not fooling yourself into thinking that there is a middle class to feature films anymore. There's really the big ones and there's the very small ones.
yes.
Anyway, but in terms of the film industry, that's kind of what I'm seeing. In terms of everything else, I think the biggest thing that'll change and what I'd like to see change is I'd like airlines to be harder to access. And airline accessibility has been awesome. It's been everything that I've needed for what I do, but it has led to seats that are uncomfortable. It's led to way too many people on planes. It's led to like people that just even I have just stopped respecting air travel. It's starting to feel like public transit, where it's just like I'm on a bus and it's unpleasant and I just got to get from point A to point B. And I think that I'd like to see air travel slim down, because if we've got less planes in the air, we've got less emissions and those sorts of things. I think that's one of that and meat packing plants are the two biggest emitters of like carbon dioxide and that sort of thing. But apart from sort of the Greenpeace angle of it, I just think that we've lost our respect when it comes to air travel. And I think that we need to stop sending people to meetings just because they think they need to be there in person, and start keeping people at home and not having to send them around, getting cars off the road. I mean, the lack of traffic right now is amazing. It's like we don't need these big giant fixes to carbon emissions and traffic and overcrowding and overpopulation. If we can just let people that don't need to come into work not come into work, it's just this amazing thing where it's like you're really seeing who is essential and who isn't. And now with that mindset, it's like, okay, maybe we can give some of the more essential people in society a bit of a pay raise, bring back that middle class of essential workers, and then let the people that don't need to be on the highways, keep them off the highways.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe how much construction was going on, like immediately. Like I live near Grapevine, and they totally shut the entire street down. They're like, wow, we can finally fix the curbs and the road and put the details in there.
That too. Yeah.
So, hey, one of the other things I wanted to touch on too is, okay, this is a story about IMAX getting in the way of you meeting James Cameron, because we were invited to this party with James Cameron, and I was like, "You got to get out here, man! We're over here! We're over here! Get over here quick!" And I was like, I was in LA. You were living there at the time, and I was like, "You got to get over here!" And you're like, I only get off work at this time." I don't know if I told you that I was right next to him, or in the same room, but I was just like, you need to get over here.
I got over there and I crossed him as he walked out.
Oh, no way. Okay, awesome. Good. You crossed paths. Were you able to say hi to him at least?
I grabbed the back of his shirt. I said, Avatar didn't make sense. I don't think you're going to get 7 movies out of it unless you make a better sequel. And he said, "Thank you so much. That was a brilliant and kind thing to say to me at the essentially the second funeral for one of my best friends and one of the best actors. Thank you." And I think that's how it went. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. Yeah. But that was the gist of it, I'm sure.
Well, I bring it up because his friends have come to me wanting to do some movies, and the what is it, the mocap, the motion tracking, and here recently I was blown away by. Now it's I can't believe Netflix would air something like this, or what is it, broadcast something like this, or stream something like this. But it was bad. Is it Robot? It's like Love Robot, Death Love Robots. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, it's based. I actually haven't watched Death Love and Robots, I think is the name of it. And I actually have been really bummed because I think that this event was what VR was made for, but VR wasn't ready. If VR was ready for this, we would have VR. It would be here to stay. And it would be the thing. But because it couldn't get its act together 2 or 3 years ago, except for in environments like big time movies and mocap and video gaming, because it couldn't jump into the public space.
Yeah. And Medal of Honor here recently, they were saying like almost 1 million Medal of Honor, or maybe I'm over exaggerating, but I know the numbers were really big for Medal of Honor VR. Like people were downloading that one specifically and playing on that. So,
cool.
But I was like, with the Zoom thing, I was trying to figure out a multifaceted way, and I didn't know if that would be much of an improvement. But I know that Zoom has the capability of masking your background. I was like, well, what if it would not just mask your background? What if it just took your face and put it on an avatar, and then we're all walking around like a Minecraft style room,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then meet and greet that way. But that's really odd, and I actually wanted to try a couple of tests doing that just to see what it felt like, but that would be a weird thing if you were on a Zoom call.
Was that what what was that the Avatar guys were coming to for? Or that's a separate thing.
No, I was actually bringing that up because I was like, dude, we could. I mean, making a movie at that point it was just great actors and face capture, because if you watch some of those animations, they didn't utilize the face capture like they did in some other shorts. And to me, I was like, almost using pretty much the real face, but I was like, that is the way to do it. I mean, the sky's the limit. And then here recently with the Matterport, I don't know if you heard about this, but your iPhone can scan in the room, and then from that point we can start making these virtual scenes.
Yeah. Matterport definitely took my VR real estate idea that I had 6 years ago, and they didn't steal it or anything, but they had a much better angle on it. And now they're everywhere, and their apartment tours are great. And we used a Matterport tour a couple weeks ago for the one that we're headed to.
And I guess I call it the blue team and the multicolored team, but it's like these two Pepsi and Cokes, Google and Facebook. Facebook has the horizons that they're building, which is basically semi-oasis style. And then Google has been mapping out every place. So I wonder what's going to happen with all these business views, street views, and I think it was that other company, Magic Leap.
I think we're just waiting on the hardware at this point, because Magic Leap was the one that totally flipped upside down. They realized they didn't have anything and they disappeared. Or I might be getting the name wrong.
No, you're right.
Magic Leap, but
that's it.
Yeah. So it's like if we can't get the hardware together, and we haven't been able to at this point. I mean, I worked at IMAX. I worked at IMAX VR. It was great. It was fun, but it didn't catch the public's interest, and that's why there is no IMAX VR anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They have their secret numbers and statistics, but mine is it's a solo experience, and you got this giant thing on your head,
Uh-huh.
and it's not high res
Yeah.
enough. That's pretty much it. I mean, if you give me a neural shunt, I'll just plug in, and that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, people are protesting a coronavirus vaccine, and you want to start jamming a USB drive into people's spinal cords.
Oh man, don't even download the neurons. Let's
Yeah.
get rid of the body, right? Oh geez. Oh man,
Right.
you saw some of those Black Mirrors, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Oh yeah, I've watched almost all of them. They're awesome. They inspired me to put together. There's a script of mine that's I wouldn't say going around CAA is reading it with all their friends, and it's Christmas movies meets Black Mirror, little anthology series. So that's one that I can't produce myself. I can't make that happen on my own dime. So just a script right now, but that's one I'm excited about. Always got to have those.
If you were able to harness the power and feel okay with the visuals of what would be a mocap room, because to me, when I think about mocap room, I'm like, there's a whole bunch of realistic props, but majority of the walls and textures and things like that could be manipulated.
Yeah, just like green screen, where it's just like green screen, or it's just like the void. The void is the mixed VR AR, where I guess it's not AR, but they put real objects inside of the virtual space.
But if you had,
it really does.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you had to harness the ability that Cameron has with his studio, what kind of stories? I bet you got scripts just waiting for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I had Avatar technologies, I mean, I would want to do it like him. I would want to fit it to a story where it made sense. I think that if I was really going to utilize the technology and make it feel like something that was worthwhile, I'm getting into the whole synergy idea here, and this is actually sort of where what I would love to go into in terms of if you want me to ramble. But I think that there's this notion of like synergy, and there's this idea of, okay, you've got this marketing budget, you're putting it into ads, you're putting it into this or that. What about putting together a feature film around whatever you're trying to sell, and doing it for $50,000, $70,000, there's just these crazy low amounts to put together a movie. But, it's essentially a traditional movie, and it's just like, any other synergistic approach,
and then it's all about product placement, but representing that product the best. Well, I was thinking of that when I was eating Reese's Pieces the other day. I go, I wonder if Spielberg did this with E.T. I wonder if he picked the candy, because dang,
Yeah, and that's sort of the idea. Is it's like, okay, let's say you're coming out with Reese's Pieces, or let's say you're coming out with Reese's Pieces 2, and it's you're not even you're not the Reese's company, you're just a small candy maker, and you want people to eat your candy. Then let's make the Reese's Pieces 2 movie for 50, 70K, 100K at most. And then you've got this indie movie, but it's like people watch it and they, it's like it gets ingrained in their minds. And if it blows up, then you do all that much better, and you're real at that point.
Yeah.
And
is it you think it might be the advertise? Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Yeah, we'll just keep the idea that, you'd probably, it would be only a fraction of the overall marketing budget is putting together this movie using a feature film to sell whatever it is, but in a not too obvious way. And so that was where I was thinking back to, if I had the mocap capabilities, I would make a feature film for that video game that came out that also flopped, called No Man's Sky, where you can go to like 16 quintillion planets, and you can, go to the whole, there's like the computer has generated a nearly infinite number of planets. And the whole idea is that you just go to these different planets, and you're exploring this shared, it was supposed to be shared world.
Where's this at? What was this?
No Man's Sky movie.
No Man's Sky?
Computer game called No Man's Sky.
No,
and
that kind of reminds me
they
of
blew
there's
it.
an animation out that mixes a podcast in with an animation, and it's called Midnight Stories, and essentially it's about a character that is looking at planets that are identical to ours, but he's just going there to extend his podcast. So he finds somebody on the planet to talk to before the planet blows up, and then he gets a host avatar body and all this stuff. But I've never heard of No Man's Sky.
Yeah, yep. It came and it went. It flared out. It flamed out.
But going back to that Eminem thing, though, Eminem, Reese's Pieces or Reese's Pieces 2. I go, the
Sure.
Eminem thing's almost flushed out completely. I wonder if an ad agency is the issue behind it not turning into like a little cartoon animation movie, because they had so many characters they built up. The peanut, the just the peanut butter
Well,
one
no,
and
I
the
mean,
caramel one.
what I'm kind of looking at is it's essentially product placement, but instead of paying $25,000 to be the product placement in a big movie, you're spending $100,000 to be the product, period. And the product is a movie. And you use that to create this weird, subversive way to sell whatever you're trying to sell. Whatever you've got millions of dollars that you're building up, and you've got another, hopefully $400,000 to put into your actual marketing. And even if you bring in an ad agency, sure, but you just set aside. So anyway, so my idea was, one of my favorite ideas is if you've got a giant house, you're trying to sell a massive ranch for say $10 million, and you're looking at like, okay, we might have to knock down the price. We might have to, bring this down to 9.5. We might have to knock it down to 8.5. It's instead of lowering the price on the ranch, keep it at 10, or, move it up to 10.1, and then use that extra 100,000, go make a movie on the ranch with a small time actor and big time actor, whoever you want, and then make sure the house is pretty well defined and pretty out there, and then put the movie to the marketplace at the same time that you're going to put another push into selling this property. And then for the price of a bunch of ads, you're preventing the property from selling for $1 million, $2 million less than it's worth, because it's in a movie.
Yeah, and what a great collaboration for location or filmmakers that are needing locations too.
Yeah, it is. And then at the same time, it's just, there are always people out there that want to get into movies, that want to get into filmmaking. And it's like, I get a lot of people that come to me saying, hey, I've got the script, how do I make it? But I think there are a lot of people that I've crossed paths with that say, well, I want to get into movies. I want to, get into it. But there's nobody, everybody out there wants $1 million. Everybody out there wants $500,000. And I'm not putting up that much money. And so the whole idea is, it's like, okay, let's do it with 50, let's do it with $100,000, and let's do it the whole thing, and then let's not lose it when it's all over.
Yeah, and that's the thing I thought was interesting, just being in the amateur industry as we see it, especially being like a sole producer. I was like, you have to get a group of people, or a large amount of people that are happy about being a part of it, that they want to be a part of it, and they promote it and they talk about it.
And that's the hard part, is it's at a certain point you don't want to be ripping people off. At a certain point, you need to make sure that everybody in the project is happy. And that's the hard thing is once we did that with the football movie, but then I knew that I wasn't going to ask anybody to do that for a second time around. I wasn't going to ask for that over. And so the business model here is, instead of, only bringing in friends and only keeping people who will take a pay cut to do it, you bring in people who will accept a pay for a certain amount of time, and then you do it in that amount of time. You don't do a 3-week shoot. You do it in 10 days. You figure out a way to produce to where you're still keeping a low budget, but everybody's still getting paid the right rate. And so it's basically, you shorten your number of days instead of asking people to take a pay cut, essentially. And that would be the way that we do them.
I see. Yeah, I wonder.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that movie, the football one.
So that was on a movie last year. It was called The Last Whistle. It's on Netflix right now. We did that one with a little over 100,000, and it was awesome. I mean, it turned out really well. It looks like it's going to recoup. We got a distribution deal for it. It was in theaters, only a handful of them, but it did place in theaters, and filmed it in Fort Worth. And so Fort Worth support for it, and led to there it is. Les Miles is in it. Brad Leland from Friday Night Lights is in it, and Jim O'Hare from Parks and Recreation is in it. So really, just not necessarily, we didn't have like a Brad Pitt who's leading the whole thing, but we had a bunch of people who folks know. We brought in a bunch of stars from the football world, from the Friday Night Lights world, and put the whole thing together on a less than shoestring budget.
Yeah. What did you shoot it on?
It's really the production budget, I think, was closer to $60,000 or $70,000.
Yeah. What camera did you use?
Canon C300 Mark II.
No kidding. And then you edited on
Adobe Premiere.
All right. And who did all the sound design and all that jazz?
I mean, my friends from college, my friends from film school. I did a little bit of the assembly. My friend did the editing. My other friend did the sound design. The cinematographer was a friend of mine. He did the color as well. Friends were producers from film school. Mike's working at Netflix now, and we're working on Thomas on the next one. It's just like people that I sort of came up through the ranks with, and who hadn't started their next job yet, essentially. And as soon as we were all kind of taking our summer vacation, it was like, let's go do a movie. Let's go do a movie that we can put on our resumes and make sure that investors are happy with, and let's do a good job.
Now, you were able to get the ROI on this?
Yep, that was the goal the whole time. Was let's make sure that the ROI is there. It's in the business plan, and it's looking good right now. It's not in pocket right now, but the numbers are there.
That's very good. Yeah, and how widespread is it? Is it national, and where's the outlets? Where's it being distributed?
North America and Australia belong to Netflix, so every English-speaking country's got Netflix.
Tell me how you got on Netflix.
Before that, it was through the distributor, but it was also a lot of legwork on our part. We made sure that they were aware of it as we were going into post-production. We made sure that that they had it on their lists. Essentially, a big piece of the business plan for the movie was Netflix just lost the bid for Friday Night Lights. Friday Night Lights is now being run on Hulu, and very soon will be run by Peacock. So there's this whole group of people who are fans of either that show, fans of The Office, fans of these other things, who are going to go on Netflix in the next 3 months. They're going to type in Friday Night Lights, and whenever they see there is no Friday Night Lights, they're going to go and Google, where can I watch Friday Night Lights? Or they're going to go and Google, where can I watch The Office? And so the whole idea is that we're making a movie we're excited about. We're making a movie that we hope people will like. At the same time, we're filling a space in a library. We're not making another coming-of-age independent film. We're not making another, here's a movie about, someone who has a sad thing happen in their life. It's like, we're just making a football movie. It's not going to win. It actually did win awards, but I didn't go into it wanting to win awards. It's like we are filling a space that they need when it comes to people that are on their website. We are fulfilling the need for their subscribers, and that's the plan. And so in the end, we got the Netflix deal after we had been on iTunes and Amazon and everything, and it's still on the other VOD platforms. But anyway, that's part of the business savvy that comes with doing $100,000 film. Is it's like, make sure that it satisfies an audience. And so I want to go and do a biblical film next. I think that's one that would be a lot of fun and would be very easy to produce, and not easy. Nothing's easy, but
don't you think you'd get a lot of backing with that too, financial backing, because there's a lot of people that are
that was the hope. I've had a couple of pitches for it, and none of them have called me back, because the $200,000, $100,000 budgets scare people, not because they're too much, but because they're too little. And so anyone I'm pitching it to, they come in and they say, you can't do it for that little. And it's nice because now I've got the last whistle, and I can say, yes, I can. We're on Netflix with.
Yeah, all you got to do is show them the numbers, right?
Yep. Yeah, and so it's interesting because they're more comfortable spending. They only want to spend more money than they know they'll make back, and it baffles me, and it's an old fashioned way of doing it. So I'm hoping that hoping that your audience will hear my gospel of stop spending too much money on making movies. Trust that I've got this resume of things that I know I can do for next to nothing, and
Yeah.
let's actually do a good job, and let's actually get stuff made and
Make
put together.
good content. Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
do it, and way you can do it twice.
one of the things I was thinking about was it's almost like a scaling thing. Like, okay, here's the numbers that you did. Here's the $100,000. Here's the ROI, and this is how successful it was, and this is how long it took. And now you're gonna have to give me 3 times as much because I'm worth that, and I'm scaling, and I'm very valuable right now, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it is and it isn't. I think that's the idea. Is it's like make one and then make another one for three times and then get hired by a studio and go make a superhero movie. And I wish it was that easy. But right now, that was actually the original thought. It was like, hey, after this, go make a movie for $300,000, $400,000. But the more that I learn about it, the more I'm seeing, you know what, like the movies that are getting made for that much are a whole different beast, and it's a whole different world, and it's actually a lot of it's really kind of built on trash. You're just churning out, here's who's in it, here's what it's about, here's the genre, and here I am kind of in this $100,000, $200,000 world where it's like I can do whatever I want because I don't have to make back $500,000 when it's done. And by doing whatever you want, you can make a better product, and you can fill those more specific areas in these streamers libraries. And so anyway, that's the business model, and that's what I've been most excited about. Is it's like, hey, with really compared to other movies, with next to nothing, we can have a movie. We can have a real movie that's got everything that it needs, that will end up in a place where people are going to see it, and that we can be proud of when it's all over. And it's not going to feel like you took a $100,000 bath. It's not going to feel like I wasted your time. It's not going to feel like you made the movie and you had to sit on it for 2 years and 3 years and wait for the specific deal. It's like, it's the true financial and creative freedom to go and make movies.
So what religious movie would you do?
So I think that the one that I'm excited about would be, it's a script that I've been working on, and it's one that I would consider taking a co-writer on, kind of coming to bring it together. But it would be one of those apocryphal movies where it takes place between books of the Bible. It's kind of it's not based on a specific book of the Bible, because you have to really play by the rules if you're going to adapt a very specific chapter. So it would be Jesus's adolescence and growing up
The missing
with
years?
the Holy Family. The what?
You do the missing years of Jesus?
The missing years of Jesus. That's it.
Are you kidding? Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So and do it all in a way that's very respectful, and do it all in a way that's PG at worst, because you got to have the Romans, causing trouble. But a PG, family friendly, but also
I gotta know. I'm interested in that because of course Scorsese's one they did with like was it I can't remember what it's called.
Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
It's the issue with Last Temptation of Christ is rated R, and you're not gonna be able to show that to anyone that's
it is blasphemy because they basically talk like an alternate verse, but I want to know about
the
this
alternate verse.
I can't imagine. I mean, him being a teenager, and I don't know how you would play that. I mean, there's lost years, nobody's got it recorded.
Yeah, and so it's just this idea that we, the Bible doesn't say what happened in those years. Nobody, we will never know. There will never be a text that will say, Jesus of Nazareth did this and that when at age 17. And if we ever discover those, it'll be crazy, because it'll what we're missing probably a good 20 years at this point between when he's 10 or 11 and when he shows up at age 30 or 31. And it centers around Joseph. It centers around the father figure. It centers around, we know that Joseph wasn't alive whenever Jesus begins his ministry at age 29 or 30. We know that Joseph dies sometime between 12 years old and 30 years old.
And was he even in that region? Like, was the young teenage Jesus even around that area?
Right. And so they so after they flee Herod, when he's born, when you have Christmas, when you have, the nativity story, they flee to Egypt. And then there is a movie that covers this period of his life, and it grossed, $2-3 million. But it was a higher budget, so I'm not gonna sit around and pretend like that's my goal with this one. But there's a movie called, it was done by Christopher Columbus's production company, uh, uh, The Young Messiah. The Young Messiah covers Jesus at like age 9, age 10.
Hmm.
And it's, he and Joseph and Mary return to Nazareth, return to the homeland, and have a bunch of there's miracles, there's Romans, there's all the good stuff you like to see, but a lot of it was not in tune with the Bible. And they Jesus performs a miracle, and the issue is Jesus' first miracle comes at the wedding at Cana. It's like you do not break these rules, and they did, and they took a risk, and it the film overall was kind of, it didn't get the best critical reception. So the goal would be, let's just, do something along those lines, but let's not go crazy with the sets and things like that. Let's make it a character driven piece. Do it for, 250K, and do it well, and release it on Easter, release it on Father's Day, maybe do like a summer thing for it, and then use it as a launching pad, and do more of these, biblical stories that have a mature, dramatic aspect to them, but can still be accessible by teens, preteens, and maybe even children.
Yeah, that's pretty epic, man. It's gonna be a very interesting. You can do a lot with that, and it doesn't have to be extreme either. Just little subtleties that would almost mimic what the impact was after 30. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so many religious films are, eh, people discount them. I mean, they discount them because it's like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And we actually had the football movie's not religious, but a lot of the marketing for it implied that a religious audience would like it. And we had people that were, trying to give it ratings, and they came into it being like, oh, I thought this was going to be a sappy Jesus movie, and I was ready to give it 1 star, but then it wasn't bad, and I kept watching it, and it wasn't bad, and it got pretty good,
Oh my gosh,
and
that's
it's
another
like
thing I wanted to ask you about. Is like, how
yeah.
many reviews did you get? And
uh
the worst thing a filmmaker or writer could do is go back through every review and read it.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, my whole goal with The Last Whistle was, I want to put together. We're putting together a product. We're putting together something that a certain group will enjoy and other people will not. It's.
All right,
I
you got to tell
realized
me.
that we didn't have.
You got to give me the
Yeah.
good
So
news.
I mean, they were they do 2/3 of the reviews are positive, and a third of them aren't. So it turned out probably 30% better than I was expecting. I think that
Now,
we went into it saying, you know what,
did any
we
of the bad reviews give
yeah.
you? I'm sorry, there might be a delay, but did you ever get a bad review that enlightened you to something, or are you just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? He was in a different position, that type of thing.
Uh, there were probably one or two, and the one or two reviews that actually had a filmic critique, were things that I think that I was probably already aware of. It was stuff like, oh, the budget's too low, this part doesn't make sense, and I was kind of sitting there reading them like, yeah, you're exactly right. you know so unfortunately, I don't think I had any reviews where I came away from reading them thinking, oh wow, this really, maybe a better filmmaker. It was like, oh, I need more money for the next one, but I'm,
Yeah.
I also don't, I do and I don't. And Yeah, so but it's a surreal thing. I think that my favorite moment was waking up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., the day that the movie came out. It was a year ago. A year ago next month was our debut month, and opening up the Variety article, and seeing it right online, and bracing for impact, and it turning out to be a great review. We got a great review from Variety, and they Joe Layden gave us a great review. It was a really cool experience. The movie had been out for 6 hours, and really a nice way to kick things off.
Man, that's awesome. Got to make another for sure.
Yeah. That's the goal. That's what I want to do, and that's why I want, doing the documentary right now. Is because it's like, you know what, I'm still kind of bringing this movie to fruition, and so keep making sure that Last Whistle's got doing good in its first year. It's almost like, it's almost like raising kids, but I wouldn't know yet, but you certainly do. And it's like,
Yeah.
you gotta give each of your movies 9 months at least to kind of, grow up. And so next one's coming soon. So the exciting thing about the documentary is the fundraising and the money side of it's a little different. I was able to finance production out of my own pocket, and when we come to post production, when we're coming to the make sure that the legal aspects are tied down, making sure that we're not treading on fair use. $10,000-$15,000 is all we need, to get to the finish line. And that's like, it's huge. We've got, one, and what we're doing is we're using fiscal sponsorship. So it's everything that comes to us is deductible, charitable contributions for the most part. And it's cool to have that aspect, because it's, especially they've changed a lot of the tax laws this year to where charitable contributions are huge this year. And so it lets us go to private donors, and it also lets us go to groups that are concerned with workplace activism and gun laws. And it's kind of funny, because we went from a football movie, which is very much a red state movie, to now this movie that's all about like activism and progressivism, which is a very blue state movie. And then with the next one, we'll see where it ends up. I mean, I'm not making a movie for one person. I'm making a movie for whoever wants to watch a movie, and they can be of any political ends. So
Yeah.
to all the viewers out there, make sure before you sit down with me, I know if you're looking to make a right wing, a left wing, or a no wing movie, and we'll get there. But there are audiences for all three, and it's important to know which audience you're targeting before you jump in.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, crazy. Well, man, I think
Yeah,
that's been our hour, man, and I enjoyed this. I was glad you got a time to get on, and we got the time to talk about all the different projects. And man, now I haven't met your better half. Now she's not an actress, is she?
she's not. She actually, I've tried to get her in stuff. I've tried to like stick her in the background, and she is camera allergic. She's like, I don't want
Wow.
to be in your stupid movie. No, she's nice. She's nice. She actually does show up in the Last Whistle. She looks like she looks like an angel in the background. She stands out too much, because she doesn't look like the more rough football guys.
You've
And so
been
I
giving her
actually,
any camera test or camera reel?
no, I'm smart enough not to do that. She grew up in California, and so she grew up with a lot of people that are actors now, and got to be actors. And she was like, I was never friends with them. I don't want to be an actor. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And she's friends with my friends who are actors, but she growing up around Hollywood, you get used to it very fast. And so I think she soured on it, which she just earned her doctorate degree. So
Wow.
she's better off for it. Yeah.
Now, how did you meet her again? It was in LA, wasn't it?
Met her at USC. Yeah.
Okay, what?
I was in the film
Give me
school. Yeah.
when I was out there. You were already dating, or when did
Well,
this
I think
happen?
we had just started dating when you were out there, because that was my junior or senior year.
Okay, now how did it?
And so
Yeah.
she spent the last 3 or 4 years in graduate school, and so that was where we were coming from in Milwaukee, was moving her out. And yeah, but whenever you saw me 3 or 4 years ago, right after Bill Paxton died, she and I had just started dating, and we're getting married in August. So it's been a good couple of years. I haven't screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, but how did you meet? How did you meet her?
Through the church at USC.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And
I
what is
walked
the
up to her and
wedding
I
going
was
to
like,
be?
okay, listen, I've got this movie. It's about Jesus. And she was like, I don't care about your movie. And I'm like, that's not a true story. Met her at the church USC, and getting married in August, getting married in California, as long as it'll be allowed. We'll see. Phase 3. Crossing my
Yeah.
fingers.
Well, very good, man. Well, it's good talking to you. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll catch up with you some other time.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, man. We'll talk to you then.